To stand on the deck of a wooden sailing ship during the Age of Discovery was to live inside an isolated world of absolute order. Every rope had a purpose, every sailor had a station. The captain's logbook recorded every change in the wind, every ration of water, every birth, and every death. In a vast, unmapped ocean, this rigid structure was the only thing standing between a crew and total annihilation. Which is why, when an elite crew vanished without a trace, leaving their ship fully intact, it terrified the maritime world more than any storm ever could. For centuries, pop culture has filled the voids of these maritime mysteries with legends of sea monsters, curses, and supernatural vanishings. But the real history, preserved in the waterlogged archives of admiralty courts and naval logs, reveals a far more haunting truth. Today, we pull back the fog. We leave the rumors behind and step onto the empty decks to examine the cold, forensic reality of the Age of Discovery's greatest maritime mysteries. On December 5th, 1872, the British brig Dei Gratia spotted a vessel drifting midway between the Azores and the coast of Portugal. It was the Mary Celeste. When the boarding party stepped onto the ship, they expected a scene of violent piracy or a gruesome plague. Instead, they found an eerie silence. The ship's cargo of 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol was entirely intact. The crew's personal belongings were undisturbed in their quarters. The popular myth states that warm meals were still resting on the tables and pipes were still smoking. But the archive tells a different story. The boarding logs reveal that the ship was wet, with several feet of water in the hold, and the last entry in the logbook was dated 9 days prior. Most importantly, the ship's single lifeboat was missing. Why would an experienced captain, Benjamin Briggs, order his wife, young daughter, and 7 skilled crewmen into a tiny lifeboat in the middle of the open ocean, abandoning a perfectly seaworthy vessel? For decades, the mystery endured. But modern forensic historians and chemical engineers have uncovered a highly probable, grounded answer. The Mary Celeste was carrying a cargo of raw, unrefined alcohol stored in porous oak barrels. During the humid voyage, 9 of these barrels leaked, filling the unventilated hold with highly volatile, invisible chemical vapors. A sudden spark, perhaps from the friction of the moving cargo or a galley stove, likely caused a flash explosion. It would have been terrifying. A blast of blue fire that blew open the main hatches but died down instantly without leaving burn marks on the wet timber. Fearing the entire ship was about to explode, Captain Briggs made a fatal calculation. He ordered everyone into the lifeboat, securing it to the main ship with a long rope tow line, intending to wait out the fumes. But the Atlantic is unforgiving. A sudden squall likely struck, snapping the tow line. The Mary Celeste, its sails still set, pulled away into the dark, leaving 10 souls stranded in a fragile wooden boat with no food, no water, and no hope of rescue. While some ships became ghosts by losing their crews, others became ghosts while the crew was still alive on board. During the 15th and 16th centuries, Spanish and Portuguese navigators pushing west encountered a region of the Atlantic that defied everything they knew about the sea. They entered the Sargasso Sea. To the early explorers, it looked like dry land. For thousands of square miles, the ocean was choked with thick, dense mats of golden brown seaweed. But it wasn't the weed that killed them. It was the wind, or rather, the total lack of it. The Sargasso Sea lies within the North Atlantic Gyre, a massive swirling system of ocean currents that traps a vast zone of dead air at its center. This zone became known to terrified sailors as the horse latitudes. Ships would sail into these waters, the wind would vanish, and the vessel would sit entirely motionless for weeks, then months. As their fresh water turned green with rot and their hardtack bred maggots, crews turned to desperate measures. The logbooks record agonizing decisions. Sailors drank seawater, descending into violent hallucinations and madness. When ships were eventually found floating decades later by passing vessels, they were manned entirely by skeletons, undamaged hulls preserved by the salty air, drifting silently within an ocean graveyard. But perhaps the most insidious creator of ghost ships was an enemy that boarded the vessel before it ever left port. An enemy that physically altered the minds of the crew until they could no longer distinguish reality from hallucination. During long voyages, crews subsisted on copper-bolted rations and water kept in lead-lined tanks or contaminated wooden casks. Over months at sea, chemical reactions took place. Lead and copper poisoning seeped into the men's bodies. Combined with severe, late-stage scurvy, which physically destroys the brain's neural pathways due to a complete lack of vitamin C, the results were catastrophic. Medical journals from early maritime history describe a condition called calenture. Sailors suffering from it would suddenly become overwhelmed by a peaceful, violent psychosis. They would look over the edge of the ship into the dark blue water, and their broken minds would convince them that they were looking at beautiful green rolling meadows. They would smile, step off the side of the ship, and vanish into the abyss. When lead poisoning, scurvy-induced madness, and dehydration struck an entire crew simultaneously, the ship transformed into a floating asylum. Mutinies erupted over imaginary water supplies. Captains were executed by paranoid crews, only for the crew to realize none of them knew how to navigate. The ship would simply drift until the last man succumbed to his own mind. The age of discovery pushed humanity past the boundaries of the known world. It was an era of unprecedented bravery, but it was paid for in blood, calculation, and silence. The real stories of the ships that never returned do not require ghosts or mythical monsters to be terrifying. The truth is found in the fragile nature of human technology and psychology when pitted against a vast, indifferent ocean. The ocean does not keep secrets. It only waits for the archives to be found. If you want to keep exploring the grounded, untold truths of history, subscribe to Legend and Lore, and click the video on your screen to open our next case file. Until next time.